Recently, the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements, together with the Gauteng Partnership Fund, hosted the Infrastructure Funding Summit to attract investors for the province's projects, which include megacities.
There is something called planning. There are certain things that are taken into consideration when you build anything in the civilized world. Since the ANC have for the most part been anti-civilization, their time in office has been the most poisonous thing that has happened in South Africa since 1994. Before we get into it, welcome to Citizen Concerned, where we remind you to beware of the comrades. I'm Katlego and would appreciate it if you subscribed to our YouTube channel, liked and shared this video with other citizens.
We chatted with Premier David Makhura and MEC Paul Mashatile about fast-tracking the delivery of these integrated and sustainable megacities.
I'm very pleased that firstly the private sector players, people who have significant resources, have bought into our vision to transform the spatial landscape of our province. Therein also changing the structure of our economy to make Gauteng look very different from what it was, where you had black people located in the periphery, in places where there were no economic opportunities, far from transport corridors. The projects that we are seeing here that are initiatives, a lot of initiatives by different public-private sector players in partnership with our municipalities and provincial government. These projects are a sign of confidence in that vision. So I'm very pleased.
Planning is how you build suburbs, towns, cities, and ultimately countries. Without planning, you'll never have direction. Without planning, resources will never be enough. Without planning, the chances of everything bad that can happen increases. Without planning for the influx of foreigners, a country will find itself having to deal with the consequences of illegal foreigners within its borders. The government must plan how to avoid the influx. It must plan on how to deport the ones that make it through. The government must have plans for the legal entry of foreigners into the country. The government must have the manpower and the equipment to deal with all of that. The main thing that shows you that the ANC has been sleeping on the job is the poor performance within our suburbs, towns, and cities. A competent and organized government that knows what it is doing will be able to tell you how many people their cities, towns, and suburbs are able to hold. They will also be able to tell you how many people are occupying those places at a given time. Do you think that the ANC can tell you all those things?
Just how serious are these discrepancies that have been identified here?
Thank you very much, and thanks for the time. The discrepancies are material, and when one looks at either small areas, for example municipalities or district councils, or small populations, there's the discrepancies between what was observed in the 2011 census and what is observed now, how it ties in with what we know about patterns of births and deaths and migration in the country. None of those make sense at small areas.
One thing is for sure. Under the ANC, South Africa's population has been growing without being well planned for. This is the case in informal settlements and suburbs alike.
You've got phenomena like, for example, urbanization that takes place. It has always been taking place since 1994. People have been moving from the rural areas to the urban areas, right? So that puts a lot of pressure within the urban infrastructure and services, right? And then you've got the population growth. I mean, just now, for example, we were just told about the 8 billion rand status quo of the global population. So the people are actually multiplying. You know what I mean? We actually, there's just population growth.
As if the lack of planning is not enough, we also have foreigners buying up more and more of our suburbs and renting them out not as 4 houses to a family, but as subdivided houses to several families.
And then the last one then is the immigrations. Like you've got your foreigners, asylum seekers flocking into the urban cities once again from outside of the country, based on the phenomena that I just mentioned now.
Right.
So you've got that demand, and then you've got the supply, right, which has to now basically catch up to that. So basically now what's basically happening according to the SACE report is that there's a widening of that now. There's too much demand on the services and the infrastructure in the municipalities compared to what we're actually putting through. So
we have all seen it, right? A yard with 1 house with 3 bedrooms housing 5, 6 or even 7 families. In addition to dividing the house, they built several back rooms, and all the people in that yard are supposed to be served by a municipality that did not plan for them when it comes to schools, refuse removal, sanitation and clinics.
You speak Shona, and then how do you find yourself in Villa and Malala when you are supposed to be with Munangago there? You know he doesn't give me money to operate you guys. And I'm operating with my limited budget.
Thank you so much.
Well, you can't appreciate that. You're killing my health system. You are killing my health system. When you guys are sick, I'm hearing these days, you just say, let's cross Limpopo River. There's an MEC there who's running charity department. It's not. And I'm going to tell you something that is truthful and painful. You know, Stats SA goes and count people during the census and tell me that in Limpopo you have got 5.7 million people, and tell me out of that 5.7 million, 91% do not have medical aid. They are dependent on the state. 9% they will say has got medical aid. They depend on private hospitals. And then they go and give National Treasury. When National Treasury allocates its budget, they said Limpopo has got 5.7 million people, and they subtract the 7%, 9%, and they give me the budget of the 91 to do all these operations. Now, I am here, instead of using the budget for what it's meant for, I'm operating for what Mnangagwa is supposed to do. And that is why when my people of Limpopo want health services, they can't get. And that is angering the community. Because you are coming here to, I was in George Masere. We are busy operating Mozambican National everywhere. I went to Canada recently. You know, before I entered the country, before they give me a visa, I must show them that a proof that indeed if I fell sick in Canada, I'll be able to cater for myself. It's only in South Africa where people just come in.
Those yards create waste faster than any other normal house. So where do they dump their waste in between garbage truck days? Once the bins are full, they chuck their waste on the street corners. Every few days, you find some fool pushing a wheelbarrow going to dump at the street corner, messing up the neighborhood for the rest of us. These houses with 5, 6, 7 families are using 1 bathroom. Do you think that the infrastructure will handle this high number of residents that it was not made to cater for? These are places where the government should have been inspecting to make sure that each household is housing the exact number of people that are legally permissible. But hey, the ANC does not check anything. These little back rooms will never be demolished because the government is also made of cowards. As soon as you try to demolish them, the people will try to intimidate you with toy-toying and burning tires. What is worse is that sometimes these neighborhoods are housing criminals and illegal immigrants. Guys, I received an email from a subscriber based in Edenvale who is tired of unlawful room renting in their community. Please may you sign this petition if you are also tired of this behavior. Personally, I am tired of this. Let's help the residents of Edenvale fight this problem. Maybe it will begin to make traction in Rosettenville, Turffontein, and many other places across South Africa where overcrowding is taking over. The petition is in the comments section and in the description box below. With these houses full of too many people like this, where do you think their children will go to school? That is why you see that the schools are always full. There is no space for more children. The suburbs and towns are still the same size, but they are housing more people. When they house too many people, the infrastructure and housing of that town becomes too little or too limited to support the people residing in that town. There is obviously more pressure on housing, plumbing, waste management, security, cleanliness, electricity, and so forth. Many of these kinds of houses will have electricity theft going on in their yards too. We have covered this matter in our video titled Killing South Africa, Stop Doing This, and the link to that video is in the description box below. Such residents take up more of the resources, but they are not paying their fair share for the resources they consume. I can tell you from experience that there are people who can't afford to rent decent homes or to buy homes in the city. But there's a group of people who can afford it but really don't care. I mean, people who will drive around in a fresh Audi, BMW or VW while they stay in an informal settlement. They work decent paying jobs. Some choose to stay in informal settlements, but when it's Christmas season, they go to KZN or Limpopo or somewhere in the country where they choose to build a double-story house or a single-story house with 10 rooms. They have chosen to sacrifice by living in shacks in the city while they save up to build decent homes elsewhere. The same applies to many foreigners we are seeing toiling, gardening, or cleaning homes in South Africa. But there are those who simply do not afford it, and no matter what, those people will always exist. Town planners should have kept an eye out for that, to make sure areas with affordable housing and proper infrastructure are developed for those people who cannot afford. That is a failure of the ANC. As planners, they should have made sure that informal settlements do not multiply. Instead, what should have increased is the speed at which they provide the low-cost government housing they promise the people. Because of these kinds of failures, informal settlements have multiplied. The number of houses being divided and rented out illegally have increased. Meanwhile, the ANC fails to conduct a proper population census. Meanwhile, the ANC fails to create opportunities for people to improve their lives. Here's another project that the ANC has failed to deliver on. The project was supposed to create jobs while providing housing for people, but instead, billions have been wasted. They failed to do their jobs yet again. Take a look at this.
It's very inspiring to see, firstly, this vision about scale for us to address the backlog in particularly housing, but also for us to build in a way that integrates communities, that integrates human settlements with economic opportunities. For us to do that, we're going to have to start much sooner. And many of them did say that they are ready to start. Their agreements being finalized.
On paper, it sounds like a much-needed and important project. A self-contained city providing homes, transport, and other services to thousands of people in Gauteng, including the poor. But it came with a multi-billion rand price. And after launching 7 years ago, very little has happened.
These flats that are incomplete, we are told that this particular project, has been standing like a white elephant for close to 10 years. And obviously, as you can see, Hugo, it's been vandalized, mainly because community members are claiming that it has been abandoned. But I just want to show you, Hugo, the current situation of these flats. You'd understand that there's a backlog of houses in the Gauteng province, and we are told that these premises, there are about 20 blocks of flats, and obviously at some point they were promising, people thought that could be complete, but look at the state that they are in right now due to being vandalized. The plumbing systems have been disrupted, there's leakages all over. And essentially, this is what is happening. And there's been complaints by service providers, security companies that were, in charge of looking after this project. As it is on a standstill, they are saying that they haven't been paid for quite some time.
7 years later, houses are not occupied, but people need houses. 7 years later, business people who provided services are not paid.
I started working more Montrose in 2019. And then I started go site camp too. And then we started having problem the payments. Then after that, we were promised, after site for some time, during COVID, there was no activity on site. The site was closed. And my security was patrol. And then I reported to the developer, and then developer at least can you please bring us a TLB, it will clean our site, so that my security prop. Developer then it's fine. Kadula kagata site with le matata awona. There was no one. After that, there was no one. Not the developer, not the project manager, not anyone. I was alone until site Ibula. When was it? It was 2022. Yeah, 2022. Has IT Itopura. Then, before Site Ibula, there was a company at Lilemo, what is company it will take over as main contractor. Then company Ewiata, ya Dulanya Namo siting, Juana Hapelitona, the problems of the payment. Company Ewia Nyamalala, Arisile Afelaka, Site Yastova. 2022, ya a developer Abuela Mosaiti. This site is not safe because as a security company you must have two guards according to the owner of the place, the developer. So I'm thinking nearly 2 guards busigo. It's that here. Renali squatter camp kafale. It's a problem. But I attack you, my security adula attack you every day. I must come and check on them. And but habata batakadi tunya. And the way the way Hababua, my security they talk, hands by the developer.
7 years later, the houses have been vandalized. 7 years later, billions of rands of our taxes down the drain. But who's going to be blamed for homelessness, for businesses failing, for wasted state resources? I can almost bet that apartheid will be on that list. But honestly, how can you blame apartheid when the ANC is showing you this to your face? Where's the toy-toying in front of the ANC offices and the president's house for him to ensure the firing and arrest of people related to these kinds of projects?
It is very clear to us that if we want to succeed in the implementation of mega projects, we will not be able to do it on our own. We do have resources as government, as we were explaining. The Premier indicated the 40 billion that we're putting as the Gauteng government. Obviously, municipalities, another probably 40 billion. But these mega projects are going to need massive resources. And there are a lot of resources in the private sector. So we are basically saying to the private sector, let's work together. Come on board, because what we are doing in mega projects, there are a lot of commercial activities there that will derive value for them. The building of shopping centers and other things. So we've received a very positive response from the private sector. We've got people here from the pension funds, from the banks, the state funding institution, your PIC, DBSA, IDC, they are all here. And we believe that's the way to go. As we said with the Premier, that with these mega projects, we can turn Gauteng into a construction site. we will be able to create employment opportunities, stimulate small and micro enterprises, create industries, new industries through the material supply to the mega projects, and also be able to develop new industrialists, particularly from the townships.
Montrose megacity development. Yet another dream down the drain. The ANC has done it again. The incompetence, the looting, and the lack of accountability have destroyed lives yet again, sinking businesses into more and more debt while they claim to be on a mission to empower citizens and improve the economy. What do you think the ANC's response to the megacity mess and the overall lack of housing and infrastructure in our nation will be? As they have shown us time and time again, the ANC will blame everyone else as long as it does not blame itself.
All right, welcome back. Town planners are currently fuming. This is after remarks by President Cyril Ramaphosa. He told Parliament during his Q&A session there isn't enough suitably qualified professionals to help with urban planning.
In the end, it is local government. Local governments are the ones who usually own the land in the vicinity of towns. They're the ones who are in charge of town planning. And another problem, of course, skills such as town planning are short and far in between. We just don't have good town planners like the Romans had. The Romans had great town planners. They were able to build cities. And if you look at the development of cities or just civilization, it was around building cities that humanity was able to move forward. Now, we need to do that. We need to bring people back into cities, particularly poor people.
Imagine, according to the ANC, the fault lies with the shortage of town planners. Cyril is telling us it's something that the Romans figured out thousands of years ago is something that he is starting to figure out so late in his administration.
Thobela Twala joining me this morning, Chief Town Planner. Thank you so much for your time, Thobela, and good morning to you. Just to quote the President, the skills in town planning are short and far in between. Is this the case? Do you agree with what the President had to say?
Unfortunately, this is not the case.
Let's just say that was true. Why did the ANC not make sure that we had enough town planners? Why?
Now, town planning is crucial to ensure the right infrastructure is in the right places. However, according to the President, the country does not have enough town planners, and this raised the ire of the town planning fraternity. Well, they say that President Ramaphosa is trying to shift the blame from government's poor planning.
As I said in the opening of this video, there are certain things that are taken into consideration when you build anything in the civilized world. But time and time again, the ANC shows us that they are anti-civilization in their governing. They try their best to not keep up with the standards of civilization, and the citizens end up suffering from this.
Well, the skills is definitely not a question. You know what I mean? There are a lot of unemployed graduates sitting at home. Like with our previous conversation, I'd actually defended the curriculum, for example, in the universities and everything. So there are graduates who are engineers, town planners, land surveyors, quantity surveyors, sitting at home, especially even after the COVID pandemic, you know what I mean? So there are the people who are actually well equipped, and some of them even have got private sector experience, you know what I mean? So it's just a matter of then obviously government has to identify how we actually can merge the two. It's actually an opportunity if you look at it. You know what I mean? So obviously there's this huge demand of infrastructure, and obviously we're not coping with that. But on the other end, on the extreme end, we've got people with the skills sitting at home. So it actually shows you that there's quite an opportunity. There's something that is actually being missed, you know.
What he's saying makes sense, doesn't it? It's clear that South Africa does not have a shortage of town planners. Why have they not appointed them into relevant positions? There are people like this gentleman, Thobela Twala, and unemployed graduates and experts. Why not use them to help us ensure that South Africa avoids infrastructure decay and follows best practices? For reasons known only by themselves, the ANC does not make use of the brains, the experts, and the human resource available to them. Not only that, but they also fail to adequately use Statistics South Africa to ensure that they plan well. Look at this.
Statistics South Africa has denied claims that the data it released on the 2022 census is misleading. Stats SA's response comes after the University of Cape Town's Centre for Actuarial Research labelled some of the data on the 2022 census as implausible and incoherent. This while Stats SA announced that South Africa's population reached 62 million in 2022. The Centre for Actuarial Research says the census contains inconsistencies in the age structure of the population. In a statement, Stats SA says it's dedicated to upholding standards of data accuracy and that it had used the post-enumeration survey as a quality control to detect and rectify any errors. Stats SA also says it firmly denies the Centre's claim that Census 2022 figures should be treated as estimates due to undercounting issues.
I mean, even the integrity of the data that is supposed to be available for decision-making and forward planning is questionable. Yeah?
Statistics South Africa has finally conceded to inaccuracies in the 2022 census that cost taxpayers billions of rand. Now, according to the office, the SA Statistics Council advised it to make specific exclusions such as income and unemployment due to what it calls reporting and coverage biases.
These ANC people don't take us or our nation seriously.
And maybe just to give some, our viewers some insights on the census, as I said, painting that picture of where resources should be channeled. It assists governments to really ensure that there's fair distribution of government resources. So one of the main reasons why it's so important.
They were informed that their data was incorrect, but instead of being humble enough to review their data, they simply rushed to say they were right. Where is that respect for the work that they are doing? It has been replaced with a desire to always be right. That's the beloved ANC for you. Totally embarrassing. But it seems like they are not embarrassed enough about the appalling performance they keep giving the nation. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and share, subscribe and join our channel membership. I'm Katlego. This is Citizen Concerned. And until next time, beware of the comrades.